Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. If you think beauty, bucks or brilliance is going to put you at the top of the tree, think again. Colin Pearce, veteran sales and customer service advisor, ever sceptical about the corporate ideal of success and what drives good business, surveyed hundreds of people associated with his workshops and seminars and asked them to list the top 10 qualities of the people they most admired. And Colin has now gone one step further, looking back in history at famous people who represented these key traits, nominating his own heroes for Heather Dawson. Don't forget, he says, there are lessons in all of this for everyone in business. As for the survey itself, did the responses he received surprise him?
Absolutely astounded me. I thought that the men would put down something like a Jessica Simpson or Cher or some other Elle Macpherson, somebody who was godlike and beautiful. I thought the women would put down film stars, movie stars and whatever, because I was naive about the human spirit. To my great surprise and delight, almost to a man and woman, they thought of grandma, grandpa, an uncle, a best mate, a teacher. No football heroes, no sports stars. They were all people close and meaningful to them, many of whom had suffered and survived, or not survived, but did it with dignity. And I was so moved by the responses and the things people told me. And then the things they told me about them were sensational. They said things like loving, honest, true, faithful, wise, virtuous, determined, creative, hospitable, humble. The list was extraordinary. And I was impressed and moved. What do you think the number one quality is that Aussies and New Zealanders admire most?
What do I think? Well, I would have thought something like genuineness or honesty.
Hey, very good. The number one quality Australians and New Zealanders is honesty. And one of the most admired Prime Ministers of Australia was the World War II Prime Minister John Curtin, who was nicknamed Honest John. He was so honest, he even paid his own gate fee to get in to watch the rugby. And he was so humble that he stood on the mound, and when they came up and said, "Oh, you're the Prime Minister, please come and sit up with us in the members' box," he said, "Oh, people didn't come to see me, they come to watch the footy. I'll stay here, thanks." He paid his own tram fare and went to work in Parliament on the tram when he was working in Sydney. So honesty, yes, number one by far and away, and that goes with integrity and truthfulness. Yes, you're right.
Okay, so if honesty is number one, what's number two?
Oh, that then comes down to a range. They're all on a bit of an equal level, but a lot of people wrote down love, and I had to split that up a bit and say, what do you mean by love? I looked at the other qualities they'd mentioned, and so I came up with benevolence. Funny word, but it means intentionally showing good will to others, going out of your way to be kind. Things like humility, exhibiting deliberately modest and respectful ways. Forgiveness was played very high as well, letting go of bitter feelings against other people. Generosity featured well. I ended up with 24, and I wrote these magazines and articles based on 12, and I scurried around to find some humans who matched those qualities the best.
Okay, so who did you match with what characters?
Well, I had to have a flagship person, and that was Don Bradman. He was the man of great character, humble as all get out, generous to a T. The thousands of bats and letters he signed were incredible. Honest and fair dinkum, warm sense of humour. You know, the famous interview where Ray Martin asked him how he'd go against today's fast bowlers. And he said, I could probably average about, I forget what it was, 78 or something. And he said, that's a bit humble. And he says, well, I am 92. So that lovely self-deprecating warmth of humour, generosity, kindness and wisdom and steadfastness, they were all strong character qualities. So I gave him the flagship issue. For courage, I chose the New Zealand flyer, the aviator Jean Batten. If you go to the Auckland airport, there's a statue of her. And she was a gorgeous femme fatale type person, but she was also called the daughter of the skies. She was the first to fly across the world from one place to the other. And whenever her plane crashed, she'd find another boyfriend, a lot of money, and get another plane. So perhaps she didn't have all the character qualities, but she did have courage. She was a wonder. For compassion, I said that would be Sir Edward Weary Dunlop of the World War II prison camp fame from Changi Prison. For loyalty, Sir Edmund Hillary. For joyfulness, none other than John Simpson Kirkpatrick, the famous Simpson and his donkey man. And you'd say, maybe that was courage. And I said, no, he was a nutcase. He was just so joyful the whole time, full of vim and vigour.
Well, you could also call him determined, but you've got somebody else on the list for determination.
I have. That would be Sir Douglas Mawson, the man who trekked across the South Pole. One friend died in a crevasse. The other friend died from vitamin A poison because they ate their dogs, which were Greenland Huskies, full of vitamin A in their livers. And that killed that friend. And he arrived back to headquarters at what is now Mawson Base, and just in time to see the ships sailing over the horizon, so he had to winter there another time. I guess this is my favourite. I'm not a Catholic, never was a Catholic. My dad was a Catholic, as we used to say in our neighbourhood. But this gorgeous lady, Mary MacKillop, St Mary MacKillop now, she was a rascal, a scallywag of a lass, but she was so forgiving. When she offended the local bishop who was losing his marbles, he excommunicated her. And people were in a great cry in Adelaide newspapers. How could this happen to the gorgeous Mary MacKillop's sister, founder of the Josephites? She said, the bishop is not well and we need to pray for him. And then finally it all came good. Carefulness.
Yes, that's on the list.
William Hudson, Sir William Hudson, the man who engineered the Snowy Mountain scheme. And benevolence. Gorgeous little Edith Cowan. She's on the back of the $50 note. And I left out one. He's my very favourite. And that would be David Unapon, Uncle David, as they call him at Rauken, the Aboriginal man who was such a creative genius. Read about him. He's a wonderful little fella.
Well, funnily enough, though, Colin, you don't seem to have anybody on your list that has shows signs of ambition, drive, that sort of thing.
Never got a mention in any of the surveys.
And you're talking to business people here who would need to have a lot of drive and ambition to succeed these days, wouldn't they?
And in the end, nobody gives a toot. People value the leader's wisdom. They value the person's passion. Yes, it's a bit of drive, I guess. But they value their sense of justice. I think of dear old Beaumont Tiles founder, Mr. R.J. Beaumont, lived well into his 90s. And when I asked people what they remember about him, they said, chap was a bit down on his luck. His wife had cancer and it was coming up Christmas, and Mr. RJ came out with a frozen turkey and said, here, this will cheer you up for Christmas. Or somebody, and they don't remember his genius at founding businesses. They remember what a lovely guy he was.
Yes, so there's a lesson for us all.
Isn't it?
That was Colin Pearce, storyteller and customer service advisor. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.